everyone, this is Mr. Alan in the world of toys. And today I have a very special guest, a special artist. Do you remember the amazing prototype for Paxus or Cosmic Legions or other wave of this amazing world? And the awesome paint job is made by my guest tonight. And my guest is Cameron Smith. Welcome, Cameron, to the channel.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And thank you to be on my show because I know what you do with, especially with this, your artist as a painter on this prototype. That blow my mind. I think the reason why we love this line also is because of the quality of the prototype and the colors and everything. But before to talk about your work with For Horsemen, I want do with you with a big throwback in your life and tell me how you discover your talent. You remember the exact moment of the period of your life that you discover your talent?
Well, yes and no. I started when I was young. I would start drawing and such. Like most kids, I would do art, the kind of stuff that my mom put up on the refrigerator. But when I was about, I guess, 11 years old, somehow I found Dungeons and Dragons and also the miniature figures. And I started painting them when I was about 11, and I just kept at it. It was very a lot of fun and very satisfying for me, and that led directly into what I do now.
Speaking of miniature, that remember me also another of my passion that is the game that I played when I was a kid, so in the first original version of HeroQuest. You remember HeroQuest with the miniature. And now we have a new version for us, but I was in love with HeroQuest before. And I think one of the reasons why I start to fall in love, because actually I still fall in love with Mythic Legions, because I start this project with my stop motion, everything on this channel. After my first interview with CB, is because I love this world, this fantasy world, this type of character. Because I know many people discover Mythic Legion also because of Master of the Universe, but to me, it's not because of that, because I'm a Motu fan, but it's because of the HeroQuest. Because when I saw these dwarves, these barbarian, these orcs, this remind me HeroQuest. That, by the way, is a game that I play also today with my girlfriend. Also, she loves also that. But with that, I saw, wow, it looks like to have a giant version of that. I can do something with this one. So I started to build diorama, and this character tell a story, because it's like a figure with a story inside, and not actually the official story. To me, as a writer, when I saw everything can be possible a story, but for this one, so detailed, like a character jump out for the screen for some movie, some fantasy movie that never comes realistic in TV show, and like they demand you a story. What do you think about this side of the? Because you told me before you are a professor of history, so I believe that you like story in general. What is your opinion, your feeling about with Legions about this perspective?
I think you've hit on something really important, is that there really is a story behind Mythic Legions. Eric Treadaway has created this entire world of mythos, and every character he designs, we can see that it's designed that way for a reason, and every sculpt and paint scheme and accessory has a reason to be with it, and that's always to kind of progress the narrative, progress the story, so that there is something more than just the physical object you've got in your hand. When you have, there's one I keep on my desk. You have this cool toy. There's a reason that it's designed and painted and made the way it is. And I know a lot of the customizers do just fantastic work. And I love scrolling through the Cabal on Facebook and seeing the different customs and the dioramas and the things that people are making in order to tell a story. I'm sorry, I can't connect it to a name, but I know there's at least 1 or 2 people on there who are doing things like making comic strips or actually literally telling stories with the Mythic Legions figures, and I love it.
Yes, it's very cool that also because I think that Eric, I consider Eric like a writer because basically he creates a story, and each wave is a new chapter of this story. And like you said, everything is connected with the story. There is a reason why behind. So I like this concept to build a line, no? Because sometimes you saw also because it's something new. In general, many toy company relaunch something that was made in the past. So reboot of everything, new version of everything. So something new. Also speaking of the story, I think is interesting. Also this philosophy to do that. But now back to your uh, your um, your art as a painter. So you told me before, oh, you discover your talent. Tell me how you start to think that maybe could be another work for you in your life, your talent. What is the moment that you wondered that we discovered that?
Um, I was when I thought about doing this professionally, I was actually still in the Army. I'm retired from the U.S. Army. I spent 15 years. Um, but I knew my term of service was going to be coming to an end, so I started looking for other things. And I'm right here in northern New Jersey, right near where the Fort Horsemen Studios is. But at the time, geez, I guess it must have been at least 15 years ago now. McFarlane Toys was right in the same area, and I found the studio there, and I went. Kind of set up a kind of interview where I brought a portfolio of things I had painted, and then I spoke to them there, and they took me on as a freelancer. So I worked for McFarlane Toys for a little bit, and I was hoping to do that when I got out of the Army full time. But it took a few years, and there were some twists and turns in the middle before it worked out as well as it did, and I found a home at Fort Horsemen. So I'm very fortunate in that I found something that I have a passion for, that I can make a living doing.
Cool. And beside your work for Awesome in general, you did or you do also some paint by yourself?
Oh yeah, I still paint miniatures for Warhammer and Dungeons and Dragons and all kinds of things. In fact, that's my desk right there. This is my home studio. So these are all my paints and my tools here that I use when I do stuff for myself. I don't really customize the action figures for myself because after a full day or a full week of working on them in the studio, I like to change it up and keep my own personal stuff a little separate. So I do the miniatures, the smaller gaming pieces for myself, and use the my time at work to use slightly different techniques, maybe on something a bit larger. So it's the work is fun, and it doesn't get me burnt out on it, and it doesn't make my hobby into a job. Quite the opposite. So I can have enthusiasm for what I'm doing during the week at the studio, and then still have fun when I'm coming home on the weekend and or at night and painting stuff for myself.
So in your life, you had a different career, military career, university career, and also artist career. What is the connection between these three versions of Cameron?
Oh, that's a fine question that I may have an answer to someday. I don't know, but the military aside, maybe that doesn't fit. But I think my interest in history, because I was a history professor, even when I first started with Four Horsemen about 2 years ago, I was still working as a history professor at the state university, not far from here. But I think it's back to the story. What I like about painting the miniatures for the games and painting the toys at work, or teaching the history at work, because it's all about the story. I would always tell my students that, the history we were going to cover is the story of everything that ever happened, within the scope of whatever course it was. And even if it's, an episode from real life and ancient history, or it's something that is on the side of, the package of a Mythic Legions toy, there is a story there. There's heroes and villains and action and drama and all kinds of things to be interested in. So the story is the connection.
Cool. And now I want to talk to you about a little bit more about the prototype. So I believe that you painted the Arakagor, the Dragon Seer prototype, is correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, for example, yes. With this one, tell me what is the story behind the scene to the beginning, how start the prototype. For example, Eric, and maybe do you schedule the new wave? What is the schedule also from the idea to the final prototype?
Well, from the idea, I don't get to see the very beginning of the process, because Eric Treadaway comes up with the ideas, he designs the characters and sculpts them, and usually I don't see them until they're done or almost done. And occasionally he'll come into the studio often, but occasionally he'll say, well, I'm doing this or that, or here's what I've got in progress. And, we'll give him some feedback from the studio, but he really comes up with the characters. But like at the beginning of the Poxus wave, we had all the digital renders that we could see, but of course they're just, basically, black and white or blue or whatever the single color is. They show up from ZBrush, which is the program he uses. And I'm fortunate enough that Eric will often discuss color palettes with me and will kind of design the color and the look for the character together. And he'll say, hey, I want it this way. In fact, with Arakagor, he wasn't sure at first what color he wanted to go with for the dragon. And we discussed, well, we don't want to do something like, we had just done Kragnar for Cosmic Legion. So, okay, Kragnar, the big forearm guy, is kind of orange and rust color. So let's not do that. Let's stay away from that. Let's make it really different. So we discussed blue and green, or a black dragon or a white dragon. And we kind of worked out different color schemes. And Eric said, oh, yeah, blue is the one that really connected with him. He wanted to do something blue. So I said, oh, okay. And we discussed that, we just had 2 blue characters in Cosmic Legions, right? We just had Oleg Thygar, and you had him in the spacesuit, and you had him naked to the waist. And Sherry painted both of those, and she did a magnificent job. She painted Kragnar as well. So we discussed, okay, how do we make him blue, but different than Thygar? We already have this blue guy, so what do we need to do to make him different? And again, Eric was gracious enough to let me suggest some different color tones and palettes, and that's how we got the more of a turquoise color in there, and more of almost a sea green kind of color in some of the highlights and the details. And then, of course, I'll paint something and run it by Eric, and he'll give me feedback. Hey, this is great. More of this. I don't like that so much. Change that. And I'll go in and change and fine-tune things so we get it to a point where everybody's happy.
Cool. I like this story that you told me now, because also because I discover better your role in this creation of the character, because the color of the character is an important thing. It's not just the color, because with the color you give also the personality of the character. So I think that your rules is very important to give this important input, also because I think that an artist like you knows also the power of the colors, because each colors give you some feelings, and also a little bit the story of the character, the personality of the character. So I
Sure.
like that. So when you like this one, you told me that also because there were Kraken from Cosmic Legions try to also to create some difference. But beside that, also, what is the other your other reason behind your choice when you choose this color instead of the other one?
Well, specifically for Arakagor, the story I wanted to tell that Eric was very upfront about was that this Poxus wave was all about magic. So we had to give all the characters, but again, in this case, Arakagor, something different, something that would make him look magical. So the flame on the blade is purple, and the colors. They use some color shift, like iridescent paint, on his flesh to give it a very shiny look. I don't know that it comes out that well in the photographs, but once you get it in your hand, it's really dynamic and reflects the light in hopefully a very magical way. It was the same iridescent type of paint that we used just before in the Cosmic Legions on the Sphexians, on their wings and the carapace, where you get that shiny iridescent kind of bug look. So we wanted to make sure that it looked magical. If we did take the Arakagor character, and if maybe we did the same colors on him as a forest troll, now that's going to be a very different feel. It's going to feel more, I don't know, maybe physically grounded and more aggressive, maybe, rather than the kind of magical, sorceress appearance we got with the iridescent blues and greens and things.
Cool. And speaking of the process to the creation, so after you do the decision to the colors and everything, Osta, someone created the resin prototype, or works that?
We'll usually decide on the colors about the same time that the physical prototype is being printed. Because a lot of the time when we take the prototypes off the 3D printers, they always need to be cleaned. There's always supports on the resin prints that need to be cleaned off with a hobby knife or sanded or anything. So I get to look at the physical parts and hold them in my hand before putting any paint on them. So I have a pretty good idea of the kind of details I'm going to get to work with before I have to commit to the paint. And again, I can use that time to talk to Eric and say, okay, what do you want to do with this toy? And hey, I see this part over here where he's got these really thick spines on his back. What did you have something in mind for that? And we'll discuss and come up with a look for the character that makes sense.
So when you start to make your choice about the color, you have the actual prototype in your hands, so to do a better choice.
Yes.
Cool. I like also this process because I think that you can understand very well what you can do also only when you have in your hands. It's different than to have a digital render of the character, also because you can see everything better. And speaking of the color, what is the process? What is the first color that you paint in this? We stay with Arakagor. Arakagor is the name. Arakagor, exactly. We stay with the dragons here. Because the iridescence effect all works. What is the process behind the scene to give this effect on the color?
Well, I'll usually start with the base color for individual pieces. So I'll lay down a skin tone, and for Arakagor, it was the kind of blue you see over his whole body. So the whole thing was anywhere that there was going to be his skin was painted blue, and then once that's there, we can look at doing shading or highlighting, and then okay, now we've got this blue. What looks good with it? And then I can mix up some other colors like the turquoise or green or purple, and try laying them down in different areas or different patterns to see what works. And some of it changes as it goes along. Usually it's pretty close on the first try because Eric and I have already discussed it, but it always takes some changing, and then I'll add in the highlights like the chest and the belly get airbrushed a lighter color. Once the eyes go in and you get the different colors in the areas around the eyes, it kind of changes the way everything looks. So it always adjusts as you move along. And then at the end, the iridescence was added over the top. Because that's kind of a transparent color that'll pick up the characteristics of whatever color it's laid on top of.
Okay, and which other characters of Poxus Wave you painted? Which other prototype you did?
For this wave, I did 4. I did Arakagor, Azahazar, Poxus, and Poxus's horse, and I can't remember the name of it right now. I'm terrible with the names.
And also for them, the process is the same to choose the colors for each of these other figures. Yes.
Yeah, well, something like as a Hazar, Eric had a really strong idea of what he wanted already, because even though it's a new character, it's a combination of the 2 demons we've seen, right? We've seen Azar and Zazar before, and well, one's yellow and one's blue. So Eric knew, well, Azahazar has to be green. So we just discussed a little bit, how light or dark we wanted it, and how we were going to integrate, the blue and yellow to show that this is those 2 characters merged together. So that came out in the staff. He's got the 2 spheres on the staff, and one's yellow and one's blue, to call back to the 2 separate smaller characters that make him up.
And what is your first prototype that you did about the paint job since you started your partnership with Horsemen? You remember the first one?
Oh, I'm trying to think what the first Mythic Legions one I did was. I know I was working on some other stuff in the studio because we do some stuff for other studios. So I was painting some, I think Thundercats and some wrestlers and other things. So I'm trying to remember what the first Mythic Legions was. It might have been Mephitor. I'm trying to remember which came first. So I did Mephitor, but also I worked on some of the Ilithia wave. So it might have been the Vampire Ranger, I think, was the first full Mythic figure I did with the hawk on his arm and the purple hood.
Yes, Vallak, I believe is the name.
Yes, I told you I'm terrible with the names. Sometimes I'll see them and I'll get the picture of the character and I won't see the name until much later, so I don't always connect them. I think that was the first full Mythic figure I worked on.
Speaking of the name, I know the name of the characters that I pick for my project, but the others, maybe I don't remember each name for each figure, each character of the line is impossible. Because on this channel I create different projects with Mythic Legions. One is a series of stop motion that's still work in progress because just five episodes until now. And also I revealed that on the last Christmas night, big chess board to play chess with Mythic Legion. So I create, because the storyline that you can find in my stop motion with 2 factions, a black faction and white faction, is the same that you can find in this huge chess game with Mythic Legions. But also to add more characters, because a collector I need to add more, I changed just a little bit the rules of the chess because they decided to add more pawns, more line of pawns in the game. So I created this, in my studio toy room, this is a huge room with my collection. I create that. So, but I think it's a big push, the Mythic Legions line, for the creativity. It's not casual that in the Cabal, in this community, we find many artists. So there are many artists behind the scene, like you or Eric, for example, but also many other artists in the fandom of Mythic Legions. I think it's not is unique. It's not things that you find in each community, because many community collector are basically a collector and enough. But for Mythic Legions, it's different, in my opinion. What do you think about that? To build not just only a line, but also the relative community with that.
It's really a very strong community. I was very surprised once I started working and I found, or was told about the Cabal, and I started looking at that and seeing how much creativity and talent goes into it from the community. Because before that, I had no idea, and I can't think of another toy line or game line like that. And also, just so everybody knows, in the Cabal, we always look at that stuff in the studio. Everybody looks at the Cabal all the time. So in a way that's kind of creating the whole future of Mythic Legions, because even if, say, Eric's not going to take an idea he's seen from the Cabal and directly integrate it, it's certainly seen and acknowledged, and it certainly influences I think what goes on in the studio, and it's an inspiration to us too, because I'll find something and it'll be on my phone. I'm like, oh, hey, look, I'll go to Sherry or Bill or someone and say, hey, look what they put on the Cabal today. Look what someone did with this or that. So it does get noticed, and it's a great inspiration for us to get that kind of feedback and that kind of passion from the people who are out there, buying and playing with toys. As an artist, it's really satisfying, because if you just make something and you send it out into the world, and you can tell maybe if it's selling well, people like it. If it's not selling well, they don't, maybe, but that's the last you hear of it. But to have a community like this, where people take what you've done and then immediately add their own passion, their own artistry, their own talent into it, and you get to see that feedback right away, it's very satisfying. It's a very good thing.
It's the magic of the art, because basically it's a community of artists. So there is a good chemistry between the you in the Horsemen Studios and the people of the Cabal, because there is good chemistry, and it's unique, in my opinion, because I discovered this community, everything, when I start with this when I start to collect after my first interview with CB. Because I remember I told you a little story about that, because when I did my first interview with CB, he told me a little bit, because I know before what is Mythic Legions, but just a little bit because of the Motu homage figure. And I go inside more deeper before the interview to have a big knowledge of that. But only during the conversation with CB, he told me something that I start something myself, because he told me about the different sides of the characters and the wars, the philosophy of this line. And then I believe a few nights later, I had a dream, and the dream was also my father in the dream. And I dreamed that in the dream I had a huge collection of Mythic Legions. And in the dream I told with my father in the dream, what happened? I never had these figures in my toy room. I never had this collection. I saw many orcs, knights. What happened? The day after, I go to the website and I watch more better this character. I saw, wow, this is for myself. Why? I discovered just now with a dream that this for me. And then I started immediately. I remember the first figure that I got was Kim Bronden, and this figure blowing my mind, because I saw that. I saw, wow, it's so realistic. This guy asked me to create a story and start to build a diorama and start in my mind this idea of the stop motion series. Also because I'm a storyteller as a writer, and when I saw this character, it needs something. I need to do something for this stuff. So I understand also the philosophy, and also the first things that you understand for the first time, that there's a different philosophy also behind this figure. Also, if you at the time, I know nothing about Cabal for Horsemen. No, I know what is the Horsemen Studio, because also I did interview with Super 7. I'm a friend of Brian Flynn and the other guys, and they are popular in the toy community because they work for many people, Master of the Universe, etc. But only when you got the first figure and you watch the collector trading package, the little message, you use the dryer. How many toyland do that? This message with you use the dryer to save your figure? No one. Sometimes I broke my. I remember that I broke the feet of my Crank Android Body cartoon Echory from NECA because I was a little bit I don't know in a rush that day, and I forgot this stuff because there's nothing messy like that. I broke the feet of Crank. For Mythic Legions never happened because when I read this stuff for the first time, I thought these guys that made this line, you understand the love that they have for their job, for their figures. So they take care also for these figures also after they sell it. So you understand this, they not made these figures just to do business, but because they love their job. No, you discover
Oh yeah.
something different, and I like this because as an artist you feel immediately this stuff. Because the details, each details, including this little message, is a little part of a universe, of a philosophy. And so because of that, wow, this is made by a really artist, not just a toy business maker, because for example we know that some big toy companies sometimes stop the line that people loves just to do something new in the marketing, and put on the market something new. Maybe it's not better, but good like the old one. No, just to say a name, I was a big fan of the Club Grayskull line, Monster of the Universe. No, I was a big fan of that because I like filmation. I like filmation for the story and for the develop of the story. So to me, for example, the new Masters that comes out today, I'm not collecting that because I still waiting more for William Stout figures or Club Grayskull. So with Horsemen it's different because they listen their fandom, also because they are another approach to do toy. What do you think about that?
There's a lot to unpack there, but I can tell you that now, I've only been with Four Horsemen about 2 years now. So it took a little while for me to learn in the studio just how much everybody else in the studio is also a fan of toys and especially the stuff that we're doing. So again, it's very satisfying because if I'm doing something, we're a third party. I'm working on something. Transformers are cool. I like painting Transformers. Thundercats are cool. I like painting Thundercats, but it's something that is out there already. So when we get to do our own thing, the Mythic Legions, the Cosmic Legions, the stuff in-house, there's a certain connection to it. Maybe kind of like a sense of ownership. Like we feel like this is our stuff. This is cool. So there's certainly more of a connection to the design of the toys and putting them out there, and also, if something comes through and it is, it's a Masters of the Universe or a Transformer or something, we can't change that. It's just the design comes to us and that's what we do. But with the Mythic Legion stuff, we change and develop and have our own input and make it really our own. So yeah, there's a lot of care that goes into it, and that's just all around the whole studio. I can have some input into the color scheme on a character and what kind of story that's going to tell, but I don't know the side of the business that's, say, manufacturing or tooling or something. So maybe Chris will look at something and go, wow, this is really awesome, and I know how we can make this even better. And so he can influence how something is physically done, between us and the factory, to make sure that I don't know, the articulation is right, or a visor moves properly on a helmet or something. Again, that's not my side of things, so I don't get that involved in it. But everybody at the studio is involved and kind of takes ownership of their part of the project. So yeah, it's something that we all do because we like it and we care about it, and I like to think that shows in the final product.
Cool. And now I want to talk with you about another stuff, about another new line of mythic for Horsemen, the
Sure.
figure obscura line. Especially want to talk with you about the Krampus because I discovered that you have a big knowledge about this character. So before, tell me why and how start your passion for this character.
I think because Krampus is a monster, and my whole life I've always liked monsters, whether they're orcs and goblins or Krampus or a dragon or anything like that. Creatures and monsters have always been a lot of fun, and Krampus was kind of well known and popular, I guess, about 100 years ago and a little more, and then just in maybe the past 10 years. In North America, he's been getting popular again. People are like, "Oh, hey, look what we found in the past. Let's bring this into the present." And I got to at the time I was working as a history professor, so I got to incorporate a story about this European monster into my history classes. And again, I got to tell a story. So I did my own research on it, and we have some Krampus events, so like a Krampuslauf, a Krampus parade here in Asbury Park in New Jersey. It's just about an hour from where I live. So it became part of the popular culture. And then when Eric told me that he was making this Krampus figure, I got very excited. So I was fortunate enough to be able to paint Krampus and also to work with Eric, making some of the suggestions as to like the design elements, like, well, should he have this kind of orc foot or a hoof, or what are we going to go with? And I got to be part of that conversation, so it was very exciting. And the copy that's written on the Krampus package, I wrote the original for, and then I think it was edited by Jeremy Gerard, and that's the final version you see on the package. So again, I got to kind of collaborate more than I would have expected on this character and the way he looks and how he's presented. So it was very satisfying, and I'm really looking forward to the things that are coming up in the Figura Obscura line. It's fun looking at the Cabal and seeing people speculate, what's coming up next. And like most of what we do, it's from Eric's mind, so whatever he decides to do. But there's some cool stuff coming up and more stories to be told there that I think people are going to be really happy with.
Cool. And tell me something about the color that you decide to do with Krampus, because it's dark. I believe is to push this side of this character, I believe.
We did discuss what we wanted to do with the color of the character, and Eric and I looked at a lot of photos of Krampus celebrations in Austria and Germany to see the way the character was being presented there. And there are a lot of the costumes that are being worn that are made out of, I guess, actual like sheepskins or other natural furs and stuff. So you get gray and white and black and brown, and some are dyed, and you see more colors like reds and such. So we discussed how we wanted to present the character, and looking at all the kind of natural colors, we decided to go with the black because it seems very representative of Krampus as he's normally presented in on old greeting cards and in Krampus costumes and such. So it was kind of faithful to the spirit of the character, the way it's usually portrayed, and also very visually dark and kind of sinister in a way we hadn't really done before. I don't know if anything else that I can think of offhand that's that solid, dark kind of colors in the Mythic line, really.
I think it's interesting that this character appears in your life in different time because, as you told, that in the beginning in the university and then in your works with Horsemen. So it's interesting this coincidence that put this character come back in your career, in your careers. So, for example, if you the only your career then have the Krampus in the career is the military career, because if it was an episode for that, it looks like unbelievable.
Yeah. My military career is kind of separate from a lot of the rest of the narrative of my life, but it's nice that there's things like Krampus and the fact that even painting and fine scale modeling and such has been such a part of my life for so long, even just as my hobby before it was professional. So Krampus is a nice addition to that.
And speaking of your military career, because I'm a little bit curious, because I don't know so much this world, but as a writer, I am interested for each different world because anything goes in my story. But how difficult is this career? Because I think it's very scheduled and very strong work, I believe.
It can be. It's not as extreme as people think. I think because a lot of people's idea of the military comes from, where's your experience going to be? A lot of us, we've seen it on TV or in the movies, but it's not always like that. It's not always like basic training where you have a drill sergeant screaming in your face. No, once you're done with training and you're in your career, it's professional, and you're working with other professionals in your field, and everybody is far more relaxed than that usually. I have to say, I was deployed several times, but I was never involved in combat. I was fortunate in that my 15 years, nobody shot at me, and I didn't have to shoot anyone else. So I'm certain that there are as many different experiences with the military as there are people who have been in, and certainly there's plenty of people who have been in even in the U.S. Army whose experience is going to be vastly different than what mine was.
So the step of your life was the first step, military career, then university, and then painter. Is correct? What is the?
Oh, it was all over because actually I had enlisted in the Army initially back when I was still in high school, but then I got injured, so I never shipped to basic training, and I went on. I went to university. I got a degree. I was working other jobs, and in my late 20s, I just happened to be in a position in my life where I had the opportunity to go enlist again, and my earlier injury was healed, so I was much older than a lot of the other soldiers I was with. I turned 29 in basic training, so I had already had plenty of life and work before the military, but then that took up the next 15 or so years. When I got out, I got to go back for my master's degree, and that's when I got my degree in history, and started working as a professor.
Tell me something about this other experience as a professor of history. Tell me something about that.
It was really interesting. My my specialty was medieval history, and I did my master's thesis on Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler. Everybody knows him as Dracula. So I traveled to Romania and spent 2 summers there doing research on, well, learning the Romanian language and doing research in libraries and museums and archives, and trying to find all the primary source material I could on the life of Vlad and his, his actual life and career, separate from the vampire myths that people are really familiar with. So that being able to do that, again, I was very fortunate that I was in a position to go back to school, in my 40s, and travel to Europe and spend, a few months there on several occasions and do my research overseas. So it was a wonderful experience. And then being able to come back here and teach ancient history for a few years was very nice. But I have to say, overall, I'm much happier at Four Horsemen Studios painting.
Yes, because I think that I have this just to speculate, but just my opinion, my feelings, because I think that you basically are an artist. So also, if you do other job like professor, also you have a military career inside of you. There is the Cameron artist. So maybe now is the first time that you have the full job with your most important version of yourself, I believe.
I think that's a good assessment. As much as I've enjoyed other things, I've never felt this comfortable in a job, and I know, every day I remind myself how lucky I am to be where I am and to be able to do this for a career, and it is a really good fit, and it's very comfortable and very satisfying.
You told me before about your trip to Romania, so you see also the actual castle of Dracula, because I think this is just a little part survive of the castle. Is correct?
Yeah, there's the castle, that's Castle Bran, is the one that the Romanian tourist board says, oh, this is Dracula's castle, and it's contemporary, and it's beautiful, and it's a wonderful place, but Vlad never lived there. His actual fortress, Poinare, is in ruins. It's in this beautiful river gorge. It's at the top of a very steep mountain. It's very difficult to get to, but it is still there, at least parts of it. And that was a long day. You have to climb over 1,400 steps to get to the top of the
Wow,
mountain where the ruins of the castle are.
cool. Because I saw something on YouTube about this ruin, about the castle. And what is the atmosphere there? This just a folk, just a tourism atmosphere because of the legend of the vampire, or the people maybe trust a little bit in this legend, because I meet someone in the past of this side of this area, and someone told me that also I studied something about it because of some my novel, that there is some legend of the vampires, and maybe some people trust also in that. You feel something about that at the time?
Yeah, I found that there are vampire legends among the people who live there. The same as anywhere you go, there's going to be local legends and folk tales and folklore, but they don't connect it to Vlad, to Dracula. Um, for them, he is a former leader of part of the country who is still looked up to in a lot of ways. Um, but they're also very aware that a lot of people from the West will travel there and, um, increase tourism and spend money on items that are more connected to, Bram Stoker's novel than to the actual Vlad. But that's okay. They're friendly about it, and then they accept it. But if you want to look into Romanian folk tales and their beliefs about vampires and such, it's fascinating. There's a whole culture of vampire lore and everything that's there still.
I'm fascinated about the vampire character, especially the Dracula, because when I was a kid, my hero, I remember my father showed me at the time the old movie of The Hammer with Christopher Lee.
Yes.
It was my hero. I won't be like that. I remember when I was a kid, just 5 years old, on the top of my bedroom, I had a big, huge poster of Dracula. And another ironic stuff is today, actually, I'm a guy that I go to sleep with the sunrise and wake up in the sunset because my panels are scheduled for people in US, so I live in the night. Also, as a writer, I love writing the night. So every my job is I work in the night. I go to sleep in the early morning. I'm a little vampire myself.
Yes, when I was a kid too, maybe 7 or 8 years old, I was a big fan of the Hammer horror films and also the Universal horror films. So, Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing and Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff and Lon Chaney, they were my heroes when I was a kid. So, yeah, it's it's fun, now that I'm grown, that I still get to work with monsters and stuff as my job now. So
also because you work also in the Lithia wave, is basically is a wave of vampires.
Yes, that was a lot of fun. That was really my first look at what the Mythic Legions vampires were, and again working with Eric on making up color schemes and how these were going to go together and how it was all going to work together was a lot of
do you remember which one of the Lithia wave did you work?
I did the Vampire Ranger. And again, I told you I'm terrible with the names. So I did the Vampire Ranger. I did some kind of like fitting and cleaning and modeling work on almost all of them. But I also painted the satyr, the little goat man. I did everything except his head. Sherry did his head. I did the rest of him. And there's the elf lord in the leather armor, and I painted all of him.
It was Lord Baldric, maybe.
Yes, Bardrick. I painted him, and Sherry and I kind of split the work on the centaur figure. She did the bulk of it, and then I added some touches on the armor, and then some of the color fades on the hooves, and also on the skin of the centaur. It's hard to see underneath his pauldrons, but he has that kind of rust-colored fur coming up his back, and then where it blends into the skin, there's these mottled like spots and dots and things, and around his hairline and his arms and things. And I got to work on those, blending those in. That was fun.
I believe the name is Apharius. I believe the name of the centaur. Affairs, something like that. Also because I'm Italian, so my English is not perfect. Also because I learn English with wrestling, so the quality of my English is because of wrestling. Because I start to watch wrestling in the original language, and to watch especially I'm a fan of the WWF, the 80s, the golden era, the era of Under the Giants, Hogan. So I love the broadcasting of Gorilla Monsoon, Just the Body Ventura, so this stuff. And I learned English because of them. And I learned English, the American English, because the British English is different, especially for the pronunciation, the accent. The accents is totally different. So this is the reason why my English sometimes sounds weird. Is one, because I'm Italian. And second one, because I learned English with wrestling. And also because in my mind there is a mashup between Italian and English, because it's weird, but sometimes because I watch many, in general, I watch YouTube, I watch some friends, fellow YouTuber, or I watch wrestling, or I watch everything in English. So I watch everything in English. I speak in English for my review. I talk in English in my interview, and I start to think in English sometimes. Sometimes instead to say the Italian word, I start with because how many language do you speak, by the way?
I, well, grew up speaking English, and there's not as much exposure here in the States to other languages unless you come from a family which speaks another language. So I started speaking Spanish in high school, and I picked up a little German along the way, and Romanian. So I can carry on a conversation in Spanish and in Romanian, and just a little German, enough to get a meal in a hotel room. So that's
German is not easy. It's difficult, the German, to learn German. And do
yeah.
you speak something in Italian? Not.
No, I speak almost no Italian, and also you'll hear a lot of Italian spoken here in northern New Jersey, but it's very different. It's not the same Italian that's spoken in Italy. It's very much a product of the immigrants who came here, 100, 150 years ago, and kept their own kind of linguistic history alive. So again, the Italian you'll hear it spoken here in North Jersey or in around New York City is very different.
So just for fun, I can tell you how you can present yourself in Italian, for example. Because if you won't say, my name is Cameron Smith, in Italian is io mi chiamo Cameron Smith.
Io mi chiamo.
Exactly. Io mi chiamo means my name is. I think if you learn Romanian, Spanish, especially Spanish because it's close to Italian, you can learn fast also Italian, in my opinion.
I think so. All the Romance languages, the Latin-based languages, are very similar. And I know, speaking some Spanish and some Romanian, there's a lot of similarities. And when I see Italian written, I can see, oh yes, I can see where the languages have the same roots and still have similarities.
And now I want to read with you some comments in the chat. This one is by Anonymous Dude, says Happy New Year. So it's a little bit late, but thank you. Trevor, shout out for Trevor, I'll be home, Cameron rocks. And this other one is appreciation for Rick Jones, Krampus, beautiful packaging, and the artwork is by Nate Birch. The artwork
yes.
of the packaging.
Yes, the art on the packaging and the holiday cards were all by Nate Birch, who just does a wonderful job and really helps to define the look and the feel of the Mythic Legion stuff too.
Yes, he's amazing. He was in 3 episodes in my show. Was in 3 episodes of my show, Nate. He's also a very, very nice man.
Yes.
And the other one is for you, men tell Cowboy to try and get the license for Games of Thrones and Lord of the Rings. You guys were totally made great figures for those. Yes, I'm agree with that because obviously but I think it's interesting that you teaching medieval history, and also you work on something that related with vampire. So it's perfect Mythic Legion for you, for a guy like you.
Yes. Oh, I love it. It couldn't be more perfect. It's great.
And what is how you decide? What is the behind the scene to choose which of you or Sherry paying this character instead of the other one? What is the behind the scene to the decision of that?
Some of it's just dictated by time. If I'm already working on something and a toy is ready to be painted, it'll be I'll prep it and I'll give it to Sherry. Or if Sherry is already very busy with something and a toy needs to be done, I'll do it. And so a lot of it's just the you know what the time dictates in the studio. However, when we have the opportunity to kind of parse stuff out, like when a new wave comes out, usually we'll have the time to look at the characters together and decide who does what. So if there's something that anyone really wants to do, Sherry's like, oh man, I really wanted to, she was very excited about the moose, about painting Alder. Great, perfect. Give it to Sherry. That's something she wanted to do. Or if there's something that I feel strongly about, oh, hey, I really want to do this, usually I'll be able to do it. So we try to, be fair, to share the work evenly, because there's a lot of fun to be had there. And when you really care about what you're doing and you really like it, you're going to do a better job. So we try to, cooperate and coordinate as much as possible and make sure that we all get to do some of the cool stuff.
Awesome. And how long is the work to create a complete paint job in a prototype? For example, for Arakagor, what is the time that you...
Arakagor was a long one. I think I probably spent the better part of 2 weeks on Arakagor, which is pretty long for an action figure. I want to say if there's something simple like a Legion builder where it's mostly one or two major colors, usually maybe a day or two. Not even a dead day, would be very quick. 2 days or so would be for a very simple figure, and then it moves up from there. And again, Arakagor, there's so many different colors and different applications on him. He took me almost 2 weeks. Something like Azahazar, where Eric had a really strong idea of what he wanted him to look like, and we worked it out. Okay, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. That was probably still a good 4 or 5 days, because there's a lot of detail on him, especially like the lightning marks that come down his shoulders. Something like that takes a long time.
But when you work, for example, in the Dragon Sea Arakagor, you work only on this one, or maybe because I think that when you paint, you need the paint become, I don't know what is the English word to that, because there's because when in the beginning when you paint something in general, you need to wait a little bit later before to paint another stuff on this color, no? I believe.
You can go pretty fast. We usually keep hair dryers in the studio so we can dry one coat of paint and go right back. But with something like Arakagor, there were other things to be done at the same time, other figures in the line that I was working on. So I didn't just work on one toy at a time. Sometimes I'm working on 2 or 3 at a time, depending on.
Also, maybe because to save the time, also, no, because depend also on what is the deadline to finish everything. Also, I believe. Happens sometimes that you have a short period to do everything.
I think I'm trying to remember how much time we had to do different things. Like for instance, I think with Cosmic Legions, once we got everything, and that was a lot of work because it was a whole new line. It was a completely different. So I think that was about 1 month solid of just painting Cosmic Legion. So that was that first wave. So between me and Sherry, a whole month just to do that wave. Where something like Mythic Legions, because the line is established already, some of the stuff may be more familiar because we're using some of the same pieces and it'll be new paint on it, but we've been over it. Oh, I've painted this piece before, maybe 2 or 3 times, and changing the colors up, it's more familiar and it may flow a little quicker. But it really depends on how much new sculpting there is and how much difference in the characters. The Poxus wave took some extra time because we were doing things that we had never seen before in in Mythic Legions, like the magic effects and things. So that took some extra time to work out what was going to be done with that and how it was going um, to look. And we did try a couple of different colors on those. So somewhere around the studio, I think there's still different magic effects and colors that, the prototypes are there that won't get produced because we tried a certain color and it doesn't look right, it didn't work out. Let's change that. We went with the colors we eventually wound up with, blues and reds and things.
And which character did you paint for the Cosmic Legions?
Sherry and I split up the work, and it's funny because we didn't know that there were factions at the time. So just the way it worked out, I painted all the Tusk figures, and Sherry painted all the Rebel figures. So I painted the Warden Slog and the Sphexians and the Tusk soldiers and Legion builders, and Sherry painted Oleg Thygar and Kragnar and what were the two female figures?
Zeri one was called.
Yes.
And the other one, I don't remember the name. But tell me something about the name is sometimes it's a big challenge to everyone. Tell me something about the process to the creation of the colorful slug.
That I had some interesting conversations with Eric on, because with the Warden Slog, he's got that kind of bright green, especially on his head, but it gets darker and more grayed out on his limbs. That's because the idea is he's like a frog, so he's got this kind of wet, slimy skin. So his head underneath that helmet would stay moist, so it's going to be that bright green. But he's got his sleeves rolled up, so you can see on his arm, as his skin dries out, it gets darker and more flaky. So that's why you get the kind of dry, dark green and gray texture on his knuckles and his forearms and such. So that's what we wanted to the story we wanted to tell with Slug.
It's amazing, the figure. I believe that is the favorite to everyone because was like the guide represent the full wave, because everybody remember this figure is so unique. And
Yeah.
there are some figures that after you paint after you finish the job of the full prototype, you saw that you wasn't satisfied, you need to restart everything.
No, I don't think it gets that far, because usually we can tell as we're doing a part, hey, I'm doing I don't know, a weapon or a piece of armor or a head, and it's not working. So I'll just change it as we go along. So usually by the time we get to the end, we'll say, yeah, this is what I was looking for. And if something doesn't work, this color doesn't work with that piece there, let's change that detail. But I don't think we've ever gone back to just say, okay, scrap it, let's start over, let's start from scratch. It's too long a process, and we have the opportunity to make those changes as we go along.
So during the working process, you did also the changes for everything if they need that. And what is your favorite prototype that you did your work? You do your paint job. What is your favorite? You are so proud. This is my favorite, my masterpiece. What is your masterpiece?
I think the answer is going to change at different times, but right now my answer is the Poxus. It was so much fun to work on that figure because he has so many different textures on him and so many different techniques we had to use that I got to do. There's his skin, which has to look dry in places, but then it's got those, green and yellow sores on it in other places. And he's got armor, but then he's also got the bug wings and the magical effects for the bow. So there were so many different textures and colors to work on with him. I was very satisfied and happy the way it came together, and I really want it. I can't wait for it because I want to play with one. It's a really fun toy.
Cool, cool. Well, now we are over 1 hour for the interview. How much time do you still have for the show?
Whatever you like. I don't have to be anywhere until I'm back at work on Monday morning.
Okay, okay. Because I am interested to talk with you because we I can understand better because I think it's important knows the behind the scene to create this stuff because the prototype is basically their direction for the character and also the debut of the character is really important. Like an artist when debut for the first time needs to put in his identity, to the audience. So I like this conversation because is the prototype is one there is. I remember when I watched the stream for the Boxus and G-Con, I was outdoor. I was not at my home. I was in the city to do some stuff. I remember I watched that walking on the train and this stuff because I'm not a guy that purchase everything. I pick some character, not because character that works from my project. And the dragon seer is one of the character that was in the beginning. I wasn't sure to get in because in the beginning I picked the four wizard, so Samir, Arizak, I believe, Zende, and the female Trace, okay, and the horse. But for the dragon, I thought about a week of this character, and so the images of your prototype. There is here comes Trevor. Welcome, Trevor, my friend. How you doing? And so when I needed to think a lot about these figures, not because my choice is not just that I pick this one, this one, this one. I think about that. Before I know that I needed some wizard, real wizard, because I have John Rune Shaper. This is an awesome character. By when I did my second interview with CB, he told me, gave me a little bit, a little teaser because he told me, hey, it will be something for you in the new wave. Because speaking of classic wizard, because I asked him, will be the future some wizard with the typical robe with the long beard? And yeah, he told me that a little teaser for that. And so when I saw Poxus Wave and the announcement, I thought, wow, this is the time to get finally this wizard. So immediately wizard was for me. Also, Tarn of the Orc Shaman was for me because I like Orc, I like this new brute scale, I like the Shaman, no, the Shaman type of character. But for the Dragon, I thought I was a long process to do this choice, and the reason why was also of the your paint job of this character because I expand the photos to watch each details and the back and the tail to think how can works this guy in my storyline and also in my chess game, by the way. So because but this is a perfect example to explain how is important your works on this prototype because you give it also when you choose the color with Eric and with your suggestion because I think as I told you you knows the power of the color. So when you do this stuff you paint the prototype you feel also your responsibility for that.
Oh, absolutely. I certainly feel a responsibility because I'm coming to um, the Mythic Legions line, late. I didn't work on the first few waves. I didn't work on anything until the Alithia wave. So I have that standard to live up to. I have to make my stuff look like it's worthy of being next to the older Mythic Legions things. But certainly if I can try to more than just select some colors and tell a story. I feel a certain kind of ownership of some of the character. I feel like, oh yeah, that's mine. I did that. So Yeah, I can be proud of some of the stuff, and also very pleased if people find it something that they connect with.
If you can do some advice with some young painter that won't follow your footsteps or do something like you in their future, what is your advice with someone that won't do your same job?
Um, keep going. I find a lot of painters when they're starting out, they'll say, "Oh, I can't do that," or "I'm never going to be that good." Just start painting and just do it. I imagine it's the same thing with writing, where a writer writes that so as a painter or an artist, once you've uh, started on that path, if it's something you aspire to or it's something you enjoy, keep at it. You will improve, you will get better, you'll find your own style, your own voice, whatever it is. um, don't give up, keep at it. As
I'm
far
agree
as
with
how to get a job doing it, wow, I wish I could tell you. For me, I'm still amazed that I managed to make it work. It had a lot to do with luck. So here I am.
Yeah, I'll start actually with for Horsemen. What is your? You remember the first time you meet them? And how would they discover your talent, for example?
It was by accident. I said I think it was during the show that I live very close to the studio. So back when I was still in the army, I had done that freelance work for McFarlane Toys. What I would
Ah,
do is
yes, yes.
I would take leave from the army, take basically vacation or holiday time from the army, and go freelance at McFarlane during that time. So I got some industry experience. So I was at the Dunkin' Donuts, the coffee shop around the corner from my house, and there was somebody in front of me, and he had a Four Horsemen T-shirt on. I said, "Oh, Four Horsemen, I know them." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I work for them." We just started talking, and that was Bill Mancuso, who of course works at the studio. And he said, "Oh, you should stop by. You worked at McFarlane, sure. Stop by the studio." So I got together a portfolio, and a couple of months later, when I had a break in my classes because I was teaching at the time, I just stopped by and talked to Jim Preziosi, and they were kind enough to give me a tryout, and it just worked. It's been a good fit.
So basically, it was casual at the beginning.
Yes, yes. It was luck. It was just an accident. If I didn't run into Bill wearing his Four Horsemen T-shirt that day, I would never have known that the studio was right here around the corner, and I wouldn't have approached. Uh,
I think that is the destiny because in the life as an artist, if you search too much something, sometimes these things go in another way. But the something that is for you comes in your life because is in your destiny. I think it is the better way to find something because if you search too much, you become obsessed to find to get something you never got this one because some energy put you away on these things. The only way is stay open with your mind and then something happen. I think, in my opinion.
yes, stay open, and as much as you're able, prepare. I worked hard to get my interview and my kind of freelance work with McFarlane, and wanted to make sure I set myself up for something in the future. And fortunately, it worked out. So
I think also back to the creativity that we talked before about the people that won't do the same work as you, but in general, for the artist, in my opinion, the better way to discover your talent is do the stuff that you like. So, for example, to become a writer, yes, there is some school of writing, but I don't trust in that. In my opinion, the good way to become a writer is write, 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 and write. After that, you find your way, you find your style, you find your word. I believe maybe tell me if I'm correct for that. There's the same things to do a job like yours. I believe you find your style because you paint, and you discover your word, your style, your philosophy on that. What do you think?
No, I think that's a good assessment. Again, you write until you find your voice, and you continue to write. And I painted until I was, developed a style and continued to paint and continued to develop. There are plenty of talented painters out there, even if they're doing custom toys or miniatures or what have you. And for some of them, maybe it's a style that this will work in a toy studio. Maybe this is a style that won't, or it's more suited to something else. But I think as long as you continue to work at your craft and develop, your talents, your skills, whatever they are, you'll find a place for yourself.
And I saw before Mythic Legion's figure right there where you are. You are also a collector too.
To an extent, yeah. Most of the stuff I collect, you can see on my shelves behind me. I have a lot of miniatures and a lot of tabletop war games and role-playing games. That's mostly what I collect. Like you, I don't buy everything, but when I find a toy or Mythic Legions or something that really connects with me, it's like, yeah, I gotta have that. So sure, I still collect some stuff. Most of my toys you can't see in shot, but they're around. They're on the side of the room or elsewhere in my house.
And which action figure do you collect?
Nothing habitually. Like Mythic Legions, now that I'm more familiar with it, I collect more of those, and it's also fun to say, oh yeah, I worked on this, and here's what on the shelf. But you can see behind me there's a Godzilla figure on the shelf, and there's a Lord of the Rings Gimli up here, and a few other things. So not like one particular line, but if I just see a toy, whatever it is, I go, oh, I like that. I'll grab that.
Cool. And what is your feelings when you see for the first time an actual figure based on a figure that you did the prototype? What is your feelings?
It's hard to describe. Now that I've seen it a few times, now it's more normal. But at first, especially seeing something like, oh yeah, I worked on that, or I painted the prototype, and seeing it produced on a shelf, it's kind of surreal. It's a difficult feeling to express, but it's very nice to be able to have something I worked on physically out there in the world.
Also, because another thing that's very cool that maybe only the Mythic Legions, when you got the figures, you find the same quality. Speaking of the paint of the prototype, because many times in other line you saw beautiful prototype and the figure lost the same quality. But the Mythic Legions, no, baby, because we have a good quality control. So when you saw that, you saw something that exists also because of you, because of your heart, because in this final, when we got in the future Archagor final figure, we find also the touch of Cameron inside.
Yes, and I would have to ask Chris Gorich at the studio, who does all our production stuff at the factories. I don't know how they match the colors and match the paint jobs of the factories, but they do a wonderful job. So it's very nice, as you say, to see when the production toys show up and they look right. They look like the prototypes. It's very nice to see that.
Now I know there is a question by Trevor to you. How different is painting 112 as compared to miniatures? Is the way you approach it build colors different?
For me, it is different. For others, maybe they have a different experience, but for me, I find laying down a flat color is laying down a flat color, but the way the way I add maybe shading or highlighting or weathering lot of the techniques are the same, but the way they're applied can be a bit different. With the miniatures, so I'm working on something that's 28 millimeters tall. I have to exaggerate more, kind of like think of it like stage makeup for an actor. It's exaggerated, but when you're sitting far away in the audience, it looks right. So I exaggerate more on the small figures, where on the 1/12 scale, I don't have to go that far. A more subtle effect will look more natural on something that's larger.
In my opinion, but I'm not a painter, so just to speculate a little bit, I think that paint a miniature looks like so difficult because it's so small, everything. So, I think it's more difficult that, or maybe I'm wrong, I don't know.
I don't know. I've been at it so long, for over 40 years now. I'm just so used to it. I'll tell you, it's becoming more difficult as I become older because I have something now that I never had when I was younger, and that's these. I have to wear reading glasses when I paint, and also when I'm doing fine detail. I have it looks like the jeweler's headset, the headset with a light on it, and magnifying glasses for very fine detail, because my eyes just aren't as good as when I was younger. But that's only been maybe the past 4 or 5 years I've used that.
Okay, no, I use only sunglasses because it's a part of my gimmick. But also because, not right now, but when I wake up sometimes a little bit earlier, so when there is still the light, especially in the summer, you have the light. I in general live in the night, and I need to sunglasses because the light is like a big flash to me.
Yes,
And
I have very sensitive eyes, are very sensitive to light, so I always have to wear sunglasses when I go out during the day, or it hurts. But no, for painting, it's my old cheaters here.
do you have some miniature to shows now that you painted right there?
Oh, sure. I have. Yeah, let's just grab a couple of different things here.
It's because I think it's interesting also discover this other side of your heart.
Let's see if I can show these on camera. So I picked a couple of larger ones here. That's a Warhammer miniature. Let's see if I can hold that up there. It's
Wow.
a demon riding a kind of a fly or a bug there. So that's
Awesome.
a bit larger. And then there's some. This would be, I guess, like an ogre scale, like a bugbear. Let's see if I can.
Cool.
This guy.
Yes, it's
And
a
then
is a like a yes a looks like a little ogre miniature of an ogre.
yep. And there's a little a dwarf I did with it's got a hammer in the shape of a ram's head.
Cool.
So I've over the years I've painted literally thousands, but
Maybe now you need also to have some diorama for this miniature.
you know what? Instead of making dioramas, I usually make tabletops, because when I'm gaming with them, it's usually a 4 foot by 6 foot table. So I'll make terrain for it, whether it's a forest and rocks and spires, or like a medieval city, with
Cool.
crumbled buildings. I even picked up a 3D printer, an FDM printer, about 3 years ago, to start printing my own terrain. I don't sculpt my own terrain, but I'll print it and paint it and that kind of thing.
Awesome. Awesome.
That all lives in big tubs that are mostly in my basement. With COVID, I haven't pulled the stuff out and played many games in the past couple of years, but it's still all there.
Awesome. And what is the reaction of your friends that maybe are not related with collecting toys of this type of art? What is their reaction of that? because, for example, to me, it's not easy explain also as an artist in general, but also as a collector of explain the reason why you collect that, you do that for a people that don't collect nothing, or maybe a people that's not an artist, but for the art maybe is a little bit simple, a little bit not simple to explain, because maybe they can love one of your books, but they don't understand very well why you need to create a story. For example, what is the reaction of your friends that are not related with your collection passion and your art in general?
Boy, I mean, at this point, in my life, I've wound up kind of surrounding myself with people who are also generally creative or artists, or or friends that I share the gaming hobby with. So just about everyone I see regularly already understands, because they're part of it. And of course, when I go to work, all my coworkers are in the studio, so so I find myself not having to explain it very often. I guess the closest I could come with that is when I started needing the glasses, fairly recently. I had to go to the eye doctor and explain what I'm doing. And if I try to explain this, it doesn't work. So I just bring one of these to the eye doctor and say, I paint these for a living, so I need something that'll help me do that. And they say, oh, okay. Then they understand. But I generally don't have to explain to anyone who knows me.
In general, for example, I try to, when I got, because I'm still excited for Mythic Legions, when I get some new figure, I show these figures to my girlfriend, to my mother, to my brother, and everybody. Also, they are not collectors, still were surprised for the quality of these figures, the realistic stuff. I remember my brother loves in general skeletons. Skeleton was a big fan when he was a kid, like myself for Dracula. He was for the skeletons, and so when I show him my skeleton Legion build that I got, I believe in September, October, and I showed that he was excited for this character because he's a fan of skeletons and the details. So, and when I show other figures, in the other lines, I didn't receive the same reaction. And so I think it's good when something can pass through the line of these two different worlds, the worlds of the collector and the other worlds, is a good test to understand that this figure has something special, because it's a people that don't collecting everything, but the works look a stone troll and become excited, surprised for this the quality, and they recognize there is art inside of that. It's a good response, in my opinion. What do you think?
No, I agree. There have been people who didn't really understand at first what I was doing, but once I showed them Mythic Legions, and again they see the detail, the quality. Oh, now I get it. Because if you find someone who's not a toy collector, they're not going to be aware of just the quality of toys in general, and certainly not what we do with Mythic Legions. Things in the toy industry have changed dramatically in the past 10 or 20 years, and if you get someone who hasn't really bought or looked at a toy since their original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Masters of the Universe back from the 80s or 90s or something, they don't know what to expect. They don't know what is being produced nowadays.
Yes, and speaking of the creation of the journey of an artist, in my opinion, when an artist finds some some big challenge, no, something new, something you need to do, something new, uh, is a good opportunity to create, to growing your expression, your style, and also your inspiration. What is your philosophy when you find some challenge in your way as an artist?
To find a challenge is to keep things fresh and interesting. If I don't have to challenge myself, if I don't have to learn something new or get better at something, then it can get stagnant and boring. I always have to be, every single piece doesn't have to reinvent my career, but I find I've always got to be trying something new or trying to get better at something every time. That's what keeps things fresh, keeps it interesting, and keeps everything worth doing.
There is some character that you did that you choose the color for the Mythic Legions or Cosmic also if we are in the beginning of this line, that maybe you can see this guy also in another version in your mind. So you
Every
say
time.
this. Okay. For example,
Yes.
tell me an example for of this.
When we were doing Cosmic Legions, there's the two Sphexians, the two bugs. And I got to talk to Eric about it, and we came up with two very different color palettes for very similar characters. So we have the one Sphexian who's in that kind of red and yellow rust-colored armor, and the other one that's in that kind of midnight blue, purple, kind of very dark armor. So I got to almost two different versions of the same character back to back. But a lot of the time, especially with Mythic Legions, because we know we're going to be seeing a lot of the same parts appear on future action figures, we'll talk about, oh, well, I really want to do this with this one, but this color could work too, or that color could work too. So we're always discussing, oh yeah, we're going to do it this way, but we always already have at least one other color pattern, color scheme in mind that's, may see the light of day down the road. But yeah, it's, if anything, it's hard narrowing down which color scheme, which colorway we want to do, because there's always so much inspiration and so many possibilities.
And what is the most difficult character to paint that you did for Mythic Legions?
It's gonna sound funny. I don't find the Mythic Legion stuff difficult because we always have our own input. The ones that I find are difficult are the ones like if we have to do like a pro wrestler or something, and now I have to make it look like a real person. It's more challenging to get a likeness of an actual person than it is to say I need to make this orc look like an orc. So that's what I find more challenging is doing stuff that's more specific and realistic. Where the Mythic Legion stuff, sometimes the effects maybe could be difficult. Like again, the Arachagor was a tough one because we were trying new color combinations and the iridescent paints, but nothing really felt difficult. The difficult ones are things like the wrestlers, where I have to match this to a real person, where your eye picks up even the slightest difference. It's like, oh, that doesn't look right, and it'll make a likeness look very funny if you're off just a little bit.
So it's most difficult also paint a prototype for a character based in a real person than on a character based on a cartoon character.
Yes, because I think when you're matching a likeness to a real person that you can see, again, the slightest detail being off, and you're it doesn't look right. You may have heard people say about like Elvis impersonators, right? None of them look like Elvis, but they all look like each other, right? So if something is, because you have that real person, Elvis is a real person, so you have that to hold it up to, and it doesn't look quite right. So when we're doing you know a likeness on a licensed figure that has to look like a real person, that can be challenging. Where with the Mythic Legions, of course, I don't have to worry about that.
And when you work on the prototypes, you have something in your background. For example, when I work on my novel, I listen music, and basically I create a playlist with the looks like a soundtrack for my story. But for you, what is the process? You prefer the silence? You listen music, a podcast? What happened during your creation?
You know, in the studio, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and a lot of audiobooks. Um, it makes the time go, and it gives that part of my brain something to do, so I can just concentrate on something visual and work on the paint. Often it's not possible because there's a lot of you know, banter or talking or things going back and forth in the studio, so I have to listen to what, you know, people are saying, because of course we're, you know, we don't work alone, we're in the studio. But when I get those hours that are just uninterrupted, you know, painting, and I'm in the groove, it's podcasts or audiobooks.
And when you work on the miniature at your home?
At home, yeah, pretty much the same thing. I have my podcast app, and it's synced between my phone and my computer. I'll just throw the podcasts on in the background. I listen to some fiction podcasts and some humor and some like paranormal stuff, because it all leads into the, you know, anything with a story, and I'm hooked.
What is your favorite writer?
Um, I, I think the one that probably had the biggest influence on me is a science fiction author, Roger Zelazny. He wrote the Chronicles of Amber and some other things that were a big influence on me. Of course, I found J.R.R. Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings very young,
Yes.
and that was an influence. And Robert E. Howard's Conan stories. But no, I
As a
think
ra-
my favorite is Zelazny.
my favorite writers, maybe I believe they are three. One is Philip Roth. The other one is Murakami, is a Japanese writer, and the other one is Stephen King. I love
Oh,
Stephen
it's Stephen
King
King.
also, because I like his story. Because also in my, for example, for my novel, I don't follow a typical type of story. You can find a mix between different type of story. You can find horror, but also love romance in the same time, thriller, and sometimes I explore. I create different novels for different type of story. I published only five until now, so far, but I still working in my novel number 38 because now a little bit more busy and a little bit more slower because I busy as a YouTuber also with two channels.
Right.
But when I was only a writer, I remember that at the time I work in 2 months, 4 months, I complete a book, and then after 3 days I start another one. It was like that for many years until I start my channel of wrestling in 2016. So is these are my favorite. But there is another question by Trevor. You're saying Chris doesn't stop talking.
Chris always has a lot to say, but actually, he's pretty far from me on the other side of the studio. What I'm talking about, what actually goes on is George is often doing interfacing in the studio with either licensors, or he's getting new files on the computer. So he'll be getting me new prints to clean or new things to prep, or if something changes and we get new instruction for a different color, different application, he'll be coming in and giving me, you know, the updates. You know, certainly when Eric's there, we'll discuss things a lot. But you know, it's a pretty social space in the studio. So there's usually a lot of banter going on.
I think that because I did interview also with Chris, with CB, I feel that there is a good atmosphere in the studio, like more like a family than the a business company. You know, looks like there is a good chemistry between each others in the studio. I believe.
Absolutely, it's a very relaxed and friendly atmosphere, and I mean, like most people, I've had a few other jobs, and I've worked in an office situation before where it was not at all relaxed or conducive to anyone's mental health. But here it's a very good atmosphere in the studio. I mean, I think there were a lot of people who came in for the intern for a day, and certainly that's almost a a convention or a show or a party kind of atmosphere. Everybody wants to be there, everybody's happy. But even on the days where it's just those of us in the studio, no, it's pretty good. Everybody's friendly. Everybody gets along. Even when there's deadlines, you don't get the kind of pressure in this job as you do in I guess more uh, mundane work. So no, it's a real cool place to be.
And then I think is you're lucky for that because you told before this type of atmosphere is not easy to find in general. Also in the because because a musician or because I'm also a musician, a songwriter. Actually I start as a singer, a songwriter, my journey as an artist. And I remember I was the opener of some famous artists in Italy. And I remember they were some of them very stressful by their manager, the producer, the staff, many pressure on them. Sometimes I saw some of them unhappy. They do the job with their heart, but they are unhappy. So it's not easy also in this world of the art find a good feelings with the other people that work with you, especially when you have to do some music album. You were stressed maybe because you had a deadline to finish everything. Also, maybe there's not good chemistry to a musician. It's not easy when you fight with many people, find a good chemistry with everyone. So because of that, I think you're very lucky for that because there is a I feel that in every interview that I did with people that work with the Four Horsemen, this feeling, the same passion, the same philosophy, the same love of the kind of love for their job, for this stuff.
Yeah, it's again, I'm so conscious of being very fortunate to have landed where I did. And yeah, the studio is as cool as you think it is. It's that's how it is. Everybody's happy to be there. And sure, there's stress like anything else. Sometimes deadlines come up. There's a lot of work to be done in a short period of time, but that's not a problem. The atmosphere and the attitude there is very friendly and very cooperative and very conducive to being a creative, productive studio. It's really good.
So now the next question that comes in my mind is a question that maybe you can answer only half of this question because the question is what is next? I know that you can tell nothing about Mythic Legions, but tell me what is next at your home with your miniature. What is your next project with miniature?
Wow, that's a tough one. Because I don't know right now. I'm kind of in a lull. The past few months, especially at work, I've been very busy. So I'm kind of backed off everything on my own right now and taking some downtime. I think hopefully if we start to come out of the COVID mess we've been in and we can be more social again, if we can start, meeting and playing games again, then I'll get a lot more motivation to paint new stuff to put on the table to play with my friends. But right now, my painting is very very slow, very casual, and I'm fine with that. And at the studio, what's next? I wish I knew because, like when I said when the Cosmic Legions took us, a solid month to paint. Well, we didn't see the designs till the beginning of that month, so we know there's stuff coming up, right? So we know, okay, we've got the Arethyr and the Ilithia and the Poxus wave are done, so we know the Necronominus wave is going to be coming up, but I have no idea what's going to be in it yet. I don't know. I'm sure Eric's working on it, but often he won't really share anything until it's basically done and ready to be printed and produced. So I would love to be able to say, haha, you're going to love what's coming up next, which I'm sure you will, but I have no idea what it is. I won't know until I have it in hand and I'm painting it.
For example, about that, I'm not jealous of the people that work in the studio that knows everything, because knows everything before you lost a little bit the magic to wait and to get surprises. For example, imagine Krampus. If you know before that the date will come out Krampus, where is the surprise? Imagine if he knows before each character comes out with the Poxus wave. There is a wave that I waiting since when I did my second interview with CB, because he told me something about that, and wow, wizards, I know that, but which wizard, what is the shape of these characters? So it's cool waiting a little bit, in my opinion. I'm not a guy that won't know everything. So maybe I'm a guy that won't have the figure before the other one to get more views with the reviews. Okay, but it's another things. And the problem that I'm in Italy, so I used some retailer in German. I'm every time late because the retailers got the figures later, but it's because in this shop called Sespay Figure, and they give me free shipment, and I need to pay them only when they have the figures actually. So I can't. So for example, for Poxus, I pick the figure that I want. I believe they are 7. Yes, because I pick Arakagor, the shaman, the 4 wizard, and the horse. So I will pay them only when the figure comes out, no? And to me, it's good also because, by the way, to complete my project so far with the old figures, I spend about in dollars over $400 because the old figure is not easy to get. So now I prefer take a little breath because before to pay another. And so because of this retailer, I don't need to pay immediately the pre-order. So the only reason why. So now because obviously with the retail you got later, and as a YouTuber is not beautiful because you lost the hype of the viewers.
Yes. If anything, I mean, like everyone else, including everybody, at the studio, I wish there wasn't such a long wait between the prototypes and the production. We're talking like a year now between, when we see a prototype and when we get something production in hand and we can ship it out, because of course we're excited for it too. That's the hardest part, is not knowing what's coming next, but once it's out there, saying, okay, this is what I'm waiting for. And it's such a long wait between ordering it and getting it in. And that's for us too, because everybody in the studio, of course, likes to play with the toys when they come in. And it's always exciting when we get, production samples, and then of course the final production run, but it's a long wait.
Yes, because it looks like to see the kids that you create, because the arts for an artist, your opera is your kids basically, because it's something that you create. It's like when I remember every time that I got my first copy of my novel, I'm still excited every time because, wow, it's not just an idea, a story in my mind. There's something I can touch the story, because it's a book. So it's a good feeling. And now, because we are close to 2 hours, it's time for the last question. But before the last question, I want you back in the future for other conversation together. So if you want to come back in the show in the future, you are welcome, because
wonderful.
Maybe for the next prototype or some other special conversation with other our friends, should be very cool. So now the last question is not try to have some spoiler. It's just a general question, because you love the medieval character, the fantasy world, vampire, etc. There is a type of character that never comes out until now for Mythic Legions, type of race of character that you want so much also to work on it.
Before I really started painting Mythic Legions, I would have said dwarves, because dwarves are my favorite. But now that I've started working on them, anything is fine, because I'm just so excited to see what comes next that it's all fun. So those are always my favorites were the dwarves, but now anything, because it's fun to get to work on this stuff. Hopefully I'll see some more dwarves in the future. I would like to do some more dwarves, and I guess I like some of the I always like the villains better than the heroes, because I usually find the villains are more interesting, right? So give me a He-Man and a Skeletor figure. I find the Skeletor more interesting every time. So I guess I've got a little soft spot for the more villainous characters, because I like the designs better, but not a specific like, oh, I always like the vampires or I always like the skeletons or something.
Me too. I'm a fan of the villains in general. Skeletor, Ordak. Speaking of Motu, for example, I like the bad guys. Maybe there is a bad guy inside of me. I don't know. Dracula was my hero when I was a kid. But actually, me too. I'm a big fan of the dwarves, and my favorite Mythic Legions character that I got, along with many others, from Dennis Derby, is Almir Golden Tooth. Is my favorite character of Mythic Legions. I like so much this character. But in general, I like the dwarves. And I believe you worked in the Deluxe Legion Builder also. The prototype.
Yes, yeah, I did work on the Legion builders and the ones coming up. So I did work on the dwarf that is in that wave. Yep.
And what was another character that I picked? The dwarf is very cool. The dwarf, the Deluxe Legion Build, because new head sculpt. I liked the new head sculpt.
I think in that wave, I liked working on the Gladiator the best. He was a lot of fun.
Cool. Also another. I picked for that that one. These figures I pre-ordered them from the Horsemen studio. The Barbarian, the Ogre accessory with the Elf Giants, and also the Dwarf. And now I regret to did the pre-order for the Goblin and the Skeleton. So I do to find another way to get the other two. But it's a really cool wave of the Legion Builder, that one also. Very cool. So now I go to the piano because it's time to say goodbye. But before to go to the piano, remember to all of you guys that watch right now, next week, next Saturday, will be a special Ghostbusters Afterlife conversation. With me, the special guest will be Alex Kropenak. This is a stop-motion animator for Mexico Toys, but before was for Diamond Select Toys, so he did also an amazing Ghostbusters stop-motion. And on January 29, the Saturday, we'll return Brian Flynn for the 5th time in my show. Also because this today is about the episode, I need to watch in the episode 43, because I'm not good with the numbers. But this show, today, episode 43, but started in August 2020 with Brian Flynn. So the reason why this show exists is because Brian. And now I go to the piano. Thanks for watching, my friends. And don't forget to subscribe for more interview and more episodes. And thanks to Cameron with amazing talent, with his amazing talent. I think the more is coming also with this art and prototype. And thanks for watching to all of you, my friends. So thank you, Cameron, to be my show. And
thank you so much for having me.
Can't wait to see another of your masterpiece, because it's, as I told you, is the first step that this character go in the real world, and they also got the fans, because the fan love Mythic Legions also because of your amazing work. So thank you so much also for everything. Also, I talk also for every Mythic Legions fan, my friend. So thank you so much, and thank you. Goodbye to all of you guys. Bye bye, guys. See you next week for another